Hello, everyone. Welcome to my show. Autumn is here. I am your host, Francine Crawford, and today we're going to speak to Saundra Woods, who was a caregiver, and she became an author after she was a caregiver for her mom. So please welcome her to the show. Welcome, Saundra. How are you today?
I'm doing well, Francine. Thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you about the things I went through.
Well, this is wonderful that you came on to talk to me. A lot of people, they all have different experiences, and some people are not comfortable with sharing.
Right.
But I believe that when you share it and other people can identify with it, relate to it, and learn some things from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So first, tell me just a little bit about yourself.
Well, okay, so I'm a boomer, which means I have two sons. They're grown, they're 30 and 33, both
Okay.
married. I live in the Pocono Mountains, but I am a New York City girl. I was born and raised in New York, and I had all the five boroughs covered one way or another. And then I moved out to the Pocono Mountains of Pennsylvania in 1990 with my husband. We had gotten married in 86, and I homeschooled our sons when the first one was born in 93. And I've been a stay-at-home mom and working sporadically different places. But after I finished homeschooling them, that's when I started volunteering at the Pregnancy Resource Center of the Poconos because of my experiences. But during that homeschooling period, that's when my mother got sick. And I didn't see her very often because she was in Brooklyn. She didn't like to drive, and I was in Pennsylvania. And the journey began in the fall of 2004. So that was the start of my journey as a caregiver and writing the book.
Okay, okay. All right. So tell us a little bit about you as a caregiver. Like, how did it come about? And, how
Yeah,
did you get involved with being a caregiver for your mom, correct?
well, I'm an only child, and my mom had divorced when I was young. So, as far as caring for her, I was it. She had
Mm.
sisters, siblings, but it was basically just me. So she would call me and I would call her. She would come out to visit. I would go out to visit her. And I hadn't seen her in a couple of months because she did not like to drive on the highway. Our sons were 9 and 11 at that time. And so I was deep in the homeschooling, being a mom, being a wife. My husband was still working in New York, so he was gone 12, 14 hours. So my life was very much here in Pennsylvania. And she called me and said, just casually, we were talking. She had an appointment with her doctor to see if she was a candidate for a surgery because she kept trying to get. My mother had a very weak stomach. She couldn't even change our son's diapers when she did babysit. She could never carry through the procedures for a colonoscopy. And
Mm.
she always had trouble with her digestive system. She was also a smoker. And when she said she couldn't get the diagnostics done because of her stomach and how she couldn't stand the prep, she was going to go to the doctor and they were going to check her out for doing an exploratory surgery. And I
Mm.
said, well, Mom, you shouldn't do that by yourself. So we packed our sons up to a friend, and my husband and I drove into New York. He went to work and I went to see her in Brooklyn. But when I walked into the apartment that I had grown up in, I saw a very frail woman,
Mm.
very frail. And it was startling to me that she had
Mm.
lost. She was always a very robust, take charge type of person, and her frailty was so evident that something was wrong. And I
Mm.
said, okay, well, let's go to the doctor. And I took her to the doctor's appointment, and the doctor looked at her, did a quick exam, and said, you're not going home. You have to go to the hospital.
Oh, wow.
And that started the journey. Now, keep in mind, like I said, our sons were 9 and 11, living in the Poconos, homeschooling. It was a 2.5 to 3 hour trip from Pennsylvania to Brooklyn,
Hmm.
one way. And this was in November. So winter was coming. The weather was not going to be cooperative. And that's how I became the caregiver.
So, from what you're saying is that, you weren't expecting that. So you didn't have the papers or anything in place, like a power of attorney or anything
No
like that.
prep,
You hadn't discussed that with your
no
parents
prep,
just in case something happened.
no
No
prep,
prep.
no
So,
prep whatsoever.
How did you get through that?
By the grace of God, basically. Really, it was step by step because every time I would go into Brooklyn, I'd travel 3 to 4 times a week by myself, taking care of her business at the hospital in her apartment. Every time I went, there was another diagnosis that was getting worse and worse and worse. So she went in and she initially was just going to get her colon checked. And when they went to sedate her to do that, her respiratory system failed. And that's when she had to be intubated. And so, like, that's when they discovered she had lung cancer. She had COPD, she had diabetes, she had hypertension. And I mean, severe hypertension, most of her life, it was 200 over something. So it was very severe. She smoked a lot. She didn't eat proper diet. And so, like I said, one thing after another after another. So I was really learning by the seat of my pants, what do I have to do? How do I take care of this?
Mhm.
She gave me, like, her bank card because she had direct deposit, so I could access funds to pay certain bills of hers. But as far as what did she want done,
Mhm.
did she have life insurance? Didn't know. I knew she had some insurance because she worked for the city. She was a correction officer, so I knew there was something there. But as far as did she have any other papers, any power of attorney? Did she have a will? Not that she had a lot, anything, a fortune or anything, but did she have anything?
Anything.
And so when she would have her lucid moments, that's when I would try to talk to her about what she wanted. Whether and she had said to me before that she wanted to donate her body to science. I said, "Is that?" And I kept verifying that throughout the time that she was still with me to make sure that it was not just something she was saying.
Mhm.
So that ultimately wound up being what I did in her when she finally passed. But it was literally from November 1st to December 30th. That's all I had, just over 2 months, just about 2 months.
That's all you had for what?
I took her to the doctor November 1st, and
Uh-huh.
she died December 30th.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was quick.
So
It
she
was
must have been ill quite a long time
she
prior to that,
was
and you
she
didn't know about
and
it.
I didn't know. She didn't share. She was
Okay.
of that generation where she didn't share.
Yeah.
So after the
Mhm.
fact and cleaning out her apartment, I found spiral notebooks where she's taking notes of didn't eat today, had diarrhea today, was vomiting today, ate this but it didn't stay down, couldn't eat today. I made it out. So she knew that something wasn't right, but she never
Right, right,
shared it with me.
right.
Whenever I said, "Mom, can we come visit? You want to come out to see us?" She'd be like, "No, that's okay. I'm busy with this, that, and the other." It was always an excuse.
So
So
she didn't really want you to know.
she
She
didn't
didn't want to
really
be a
want me to
burden,
know.
probably.
She really didn't. She really
Right.
didn't, which was hard. Like I said, as an only child, it felt like I was losing who I was,
Mm.
because everything that I could say, well, I remember when I was 8 years old and I went to, like, say, Prospect Park. I did it with my mother. I had no siblings. So when
Right.
she was failing, I was losing my history. I was the only one
Mm.
that was there to have been in that experience. So
Right.
that was a hard thing for me to do.
Wow. Wow. So, wow, you weren't prepared. You didn't even know that she was ill. I mean, that's a relatively quick time from November to December.
Absolutely.
So you had to make sure that you were able to be able to be there. Now, you were in another location. So
Right.
you had to drive back and forth, or did you start staying in Brooklyn?
No, I couldn't stay in Brooklyn because our sons were still young
Mhm.
and my husband had to go to work. So I would go by out here. There's the March bus. It's like a Greyhound. So I would get up at 3, 4 in the morning, get on the bus, make the 2.5 hour trip to Brooklyn after leaving my sons, like, on somebody's doorstep at 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and I would stay as long as I could, and then I would come back at night, and
Mhm.
I would do that, like I said, maybe every other day or 3 to 4 times a week, and that's what I had to do. I would stay. I would go to the hospital. I would go to her apartment, or I'd go to her apartment and then I'd go to the hospital and come home. That
Mhm.
was my life for those 2 months.
Wow.
Everything else was kind of put on hold.
Right. Wow. Wow. So, that, that's something when not only you're not prepared, but you're surprised at how ill she is.
Absolutely.
Um, but this, I know that you wrote a book called
Right.
Momsy.
Momsy, yeah.
Okay. So it is a book about your mom and relationship with your mom that you had and growing up and things like that
Yeah.
all through till you became her caregiver and all the experiences that you went through there. So tell us about that because uh, growing up you didn't have the closest
No, no, I didn't.
nurturing relationship and you were
Not at
only
all.
child.
Not at all as an only child. When I look back now and the things I've experienced and the people I've talked to and just living life, I really recognize that there had to have been some dysfunction in her childhood, maybe some abuse. I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't verify any of that. But looking back, I see signs of things like that. And the stories she would tell me about my father, they weren't the greatest. He was married multiple times, overlapping marriages. She told me initially when she got pregnant with me that he made up an appointment for her to go to a illegal abortionist because this was 1958. I was born in 59. And so there are things that it was not a loving marriage, it was not a
Mhm.
loving relationship. And so when she was kind of forced to say, well, as most mothers do, a lot of mothers do, this like, I can take the pain, but now it's affecting my child. So now I'm going to do something about it. So that's when she left him after 11, 12 years of marriage.
Mhm.
And she became very independent, very protective, sent me to private schools. But there was not that huggy, lovey, sort of squishy, lovey feeling with my mom. So it became hard when I had my first son because I felt all of those motherly attachments, and I didn't understand why she didn't feel that way towards me.
Ah,
But
okay.
it's interesting because now I'm working with pregnant ladies and I'm working with first time moms, and I'm going through, things like labor and delivery and pregnancy stuff. And what she described to me when I was born is so different than what everybody does now. Example, she said when she was going into delivery, they literally knocked her out and woke
Um,
her up
yeah.
and then said, you had a little girl and she went to hold me and she was strapped to the table.
Ah,
Nowadays they put the baby on the chest, skin to skin, immediately to start that bonding process.
right.
She was never given that opportunity. So I recognize that some of these things that I lamented about as a child, she couldn't help herself.
Okay.
Couldn't help herself. And, being growing up, I did not really have Christian values or anything. But as I approached 40, that's when I found God and I became saved, a Christian. And I know I have to honor my mother, despite what I feel. She
Okay.
still gave me life. She
Uh-huh.
still opted not to go to that back alley abortionist.
Mhm.
So, and she did everything she could, like I said, sending me to private schools, trying to protect me the best she could.
Mm.
So, in honoring and thinking about things like that, I had to honor her and I had to step up
Okay.
despite how the little girl in me wanted a different mom.
That's interesting because I know people, and a lot of times off camera, people will talk about how they did not get along with their mom or their dad or whoever,
Right.
and they ended up being the person that had to take care of them. How do
Exactly.
you deal with those feelings?
Right.
How do you give your best when you don't feel that they gave your best or they
Best.
were absent?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, I'm not going to say it was easy.
Hmm.
One thing that did come out of it, especially seeing her in the latter days, um, was that I recognized that I love my mom,
Hmm. Okay.
despite, the lack of attachment that I had. Even to the point where she couldn't understand when I told her I was pregnant the second time. She said, "You're having another one?" She was not of that mindset. She was not maternally inclined. She didn't.
You didn't think that you loved your mother?
I really didn't. I think I should. I thought I should have. I
But
knew
you
I
didn't
didn't
think you
like
feel it.
her. I
Yeah.
knew I didn't like her.
Okay.
And I really wasn't even sure that I did love her when I was, especially in my teens and 20s. There was a period of time where I moved out of her house when I was 20. And for the last time, I moved out when I was 18. Then I moved out again when I was 20. And I said some very hateful things. And I didn't speak to her for a year. There was no communication for a year. Um, I I'm not even sure how we started talking again. I think I initiated the call, but for a whole year, I didn't know what was happening with her, and she didn't know what was happening with me.
Okay. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
But I mean, sometimes that happens, especially when you're a teenager, you think you know
Oh
everything,
yeah.
whatever.
Oh
So
yeah.
even if your parent is nurturing, you still feel like,
Like yeah, you
I
know
know better
everything,
and I'm going to be
right?
on
You
my
don't know what's
own,
going on,
you
right?
know.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're saying that you did that, but you really didn't feel the love. You didn't feel the connection because of how you grew up. So
Right.
so now fast forward to now you have to step in and be her caregiver. At that point in time, you had already, um, I guess, increased your faith and stuff
Right.
like that. You were
Yes.
already okay. So that part of what was able to for you to go in and do your best no matter what. It was that what
It
helped you,
was
what inspired you to do that.
definitely. I'm gonna be. I'm a very real person, so I'm gonna tell you this. And if you feel like editing it out, you may. But
It's
so I became a Christian in 1998. So I was a few months before my 40th birthday,
mm,
and I knew what I was supposed to be like as a Christian. I'll put it that way. And I went to my pastor at the time, and I said, "Listen, my mother, I don't believe is following the Lord. I know I should want her to be saved and to go to heaven. But I don't want to be the one to get her there, and I don't want her in the same part of heaven as me. So I need help with that. At least I recognize the fact that that was the wrong way to think.
right.
And I told him I need help with that. I didn't ask him to change my mind so much as to make me feel differently,
Right.
because I knew that was wrong thinking. But that's how I felt at the time is like, okay, as a human being, I want her not to go to eternity in hell. But as her daughter, I really don't want to be the one that gets her there. So I mean that's how my sentiment was. And then
Uh-huh.
as I matured and I grew, and the thing that with Momsy, the thing that happened was as I was riding that 2 hour drive, on the bus, I kept getting these impressions and thoughts about different things about life and what I was experiencing, whether it was cleaning out her apartment or checking to see if she was doing all right in the hospital. And I just started writing. I just felt this urge to write. And after I finished, I had this legal pad worth of handwritten, just just snippets. And I sat it off to the corner for a long time. And I kept saying in the back of my mind, this could be something, this could be something. Like God was telling me these different things and showing me these different things. And I finally got up the courage to give it to a woman I found as an editor, Christian editor. And she read it and she said, this is interesting, but we want to know the backstory. So
Uh-huh.
when I wrote the book, I wrote like each of those long handwritten snippets. I would often reflect onto something in my past. So I put Rewind as the title of that chapter. So I rewound to when I was a child to kind of explain the things that were going on in 2004, 2005, going back to when I was a child. So that way you got a fuller picture of
Uh-huh.
my relationship with my mother. And it wasn't just a matter of, I'm going through this as a caregiver and this is hard,
Oh, okay.
you
Okay.
know?
So was it hard to expose your lifestyle and your life on paper to the public in a book?
Not really. Not
Mhm.
really. That for me was easy because I have come to this in the depths of my soul. I know I am loved by God.
Mhm.
In the depths of my soul, I know that He knew all the things that I was going to go through. And there was purpose in everything, every misstep, there was a purpose.
Mhm.
And knowing that I am loved by the Creator meant that being loved by anybody that's human is just extra. So I could take that and not feel like I needed that. And then I felt like I could share that, especially with other young ladies who maybe didn't have a dad in their lives, because a lot of my wayward actions, whiling out, was, I could say the reason, not an excuse, but the reason was because there wasn't a father figure in the house. My mother was working. She was, so she was distant. I could see the reasons why I did and I made the choices that I did. But knowing that and knowing that there's some good that came out of it enabled me to say, this is the truth of my life.
Yeah.
And if it's the truth of your life, it can be better. It can be different. You don't have to stay stuck in that anger and
Yeah.
that resentment.
So there is hope.
There is hope.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's always hope. There's
Yeah.
always hope.
Okay. So let me ask you something, and you can answer, you don't have to. Your experience with your mom, how does that put you in your position now? You have children. Um, like, does that make you go, okay, I need to be prepared, or they need to be prepared. I need to give them some information. And now you know from that experience that, you can't wait till the last minute. So are you prepared? Did that encourage you to do that?
That definitely, just cleaning out her apartment made me say, oh my God, I can't leave this to my kids and their grief.
Mm.
Just that alone, she'd been in that apartment since 67, and here it is 2004. And there were tons and tons of things in there that I had to go through. And some things I just ran out of time and I had to leave because the landlord is being, he was sort of being, well, you can stay, but you got to pay the increased rent. I'm like, I will pay her rent that she's been paying all these years to give me a chance to do what I need to do with her stuff. I
Right,
can't just stay here and do it, in a week. I have to come
right.
back and forth. So just in that alone, I started to purge things in my home.
Mm.
That was the first step. As far as what I wanted done, I made it very clear. I will confess I haven't put it in writing yet. I'm not going to lie, I've not, but that's going to happen because hopefully my sons will be having grandchildren, so we'll be able to finalize and put names in there and all that. But nevertheless, um, I know that my husband and I have spoken to our sons about our final wishes. On the flip
Okay.
side, because when I started writing Momsy, I was comparing my mother-in-law, who was 1 year older than my mother, to my mother. And my mother-in-law just died in 2025 at the ripe old age of 99 and a half.
Wow.
And this woman, talk about preparation. She had picked out her casket. She knew the dress she wanted to wear. She knew, unfortunately, she outlived some of the people she had doing things in her program. So we had to go find substitutes. Actually, the model of the casket she had picked out was no longer available. We had to pick a substitute. But she had written all these things out. And that made my husband and I say, wow, that is what we want to do. We want to have these things set up. She
Right,
prepaid a lot of things. She prepared knowing that, none of us are going to live forever. And she had 4 children and she didn't want them to be trying to figure out what to do with mom.
right, 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 right.
So
It's a
that
lot of pressure.
it
It's
is
a
a
lot
lot
of
of pressure.
pressure.
So I saw the side with my mother where there was no preparation, and I saw the side with my mother-in-law there was nothing but preparation.
Preparation, right, right.
I prefer the latter more, nothing but preparation.
Yeah, because people don't realize, like, in that moment in time, you are so distraught, or it's things are happening so fast, and
Right.
you just can't get everything together,
You can't.
and it's just a lot of pressure. So it's a lot. Even if you have more than one child that is
Right.
helping, it's still a
Right.
lot of pressure.
And
Yeah.
I will say this on I didn't think about this until yesterday or something when I knew I was preparing for this podcast. Now, my mother-in-law lived in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're here in Pennsylvania, and she had gotten sick. Like I said, she was 99 and a half. She had gotten sick, and she was going to be released from the hospital into hospice care at home. So my husband and I took time off from work, and we went down to Raleigh. Well, my mother-in-law, God love her, she hung on for 2.5 weeks. So we kept extending the hotel stay, kept extending the rental car. There were things that we had to keep doing, as well as everything on the service side was taken care of. But like I said, we had to substitute some names for people. We had to pick some other things out. And my husband, I know you shouldn't have favorites, but he was kind of like, he was the one that would do things like that for his mom. Her other children were good, but he was the one that was always under mom's wing from the time he was a little boy. So when we went down there, I fell into that role again. And she's, go by the house, she's in hospice care. We make sure she had her meds. We make sure she's clean, make sure she's turned over, et cetera, et cetera. So I had that also last year. And it's just two sides of the coin. I didn't have the physical taking care of my mother as much, but I had the physical care of caring for my mother-in-law.
Right.
So I've seen both sides, and I've seen both extremes with nothing prepared and everything prepared.
Wow. Wow. So it's some lessons learned for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I definitely purging. I don't want my sons to have to go through things that have no meaning to them. And that's the thing, picture albums and things like that. I tell them some stories, but they're only significant to me.
Mm.
They're my memories. They're not theirs. And I don't want anybody, my sons, to feel guilty for throwing something away. You know what I
Mm.
mean? I
Okay.
don't want them to feel like it's dishonoring to me if they've always seen me with XYZ and now I'm not here, but they don't know why they should keep XYZ.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the things I was going through with my mom. And like, yeah, okay, so my mom used to wear this all the time, but I can't wear it. Why should I keep it?
Right.
I got to throw it away, or I got to give it to Goodwill, or I got to give it to Salvation Army. I got to give it to somebody that can wear it. That sort of thing. Finding things like that in your possessions when the parent goes, that was a little difficult because I didn't want that guilt on my
Mhm.
sons of having to throw things that were precious to me away.
How did this change you? Did this change you at all in any way?
It has made me compassionate to people. It has made me, when I talk to some people that were saying that they have a grudge against a family member, a sibling, a parent, um, is it really that important? Because they may not have been your ideal relative,
Uh-huh.
but I think for the most part, everybody's doing the best they can.
Uh-huh.
Everybody is trying to live their life based upon the things that they've experienced. And you have to give them grace. You have to. You
Mhm.
have to give them grace. And you also can't be everything to everybody. I had to divide myself between being a mom, a wife, and a daughter
Mhm. Mhm.
simultaneously. And it put a little bit of a strain on my marriage. But my husband's very understanding. I thank God. But it was difficult. It was difficult sometimes when he's exhausted, I'm exhausted, and I'm exhausted and I'm grieving because she hadn't passed yet, but I know it's coming and I can't stop it. And there were times when I had wanted her to move to Pennsylvania to be closer to me and closer to her grandsons, and she didn't want to leave Brooklyn. And then
Mhm.
there's that what if she had, would she be in better care now? Sort
Right.
of thought running through your head. Why didn't I push her to do something? But you
Mhm.
can't go back and you can't second guess things like that. And you can't beat yourself up for the choices that you make.
Mhm.
You don't always know what the outcome's going to be. So, in that sense, I've given myself and the people around me a lot of grace. I try to instill that in the people that I encounter that have something against somebody, in their family. I'm like, listen, you only got one sister, you only got one mother, you only got one father. Yeah, they might not have been the best, but unless they were really, rough and harsh,
Right.
then, give them some grace.
Hmm.
They maybe have never been a 40-something-year-old with an 18-year-old child
Hmm.
before. They never did that before. So they're shooting from the hip. They're going from the seat of their pants. And it's hard. It has to be hard. We can't have the ideal families, but we have to do our best to honor them. And sometimes that may mean putting them in a home where you can't take care of them, but you have to be able to do that without guilt,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because you can't be everything to everybody. I
Hmm.
could not say, like, to the doctors, well, bring her to Pennsylvania and I'll care for her in my home, or I'll care for you. I couldn't have done that.
Hmm.
In an ideal situation, that it might have been something someone else could have done, but
Right,
that was not something I could have done. And I couldn't go and stay in Brooklyn and
right,
stay by her bedside 12 hours a day. I couldn't do that.
right.
I had to
Okay.
do the best I could. And I had to give myself grace with that.
Mhm. Well, caregiving is a lot of sacrifice, and a lot of times we're not expecting it, so we don't know, how
Yeah.
much and how long, these things are going to happen, and what we have to sacrifice with and stuff like that. But
Exactly.
I'm glad that you were able to not only make amends, but take care of her, but also be brave enough to write your book and
Yeah.
give people information and just expose, your upbringing and things like that,
Hmm.
and what the results were
Right.
afterwards. And so it's really good and brave that you were able to write your book, Momsy.
Thank you.
So,
And
is
there's a
it,
reason for that. So I'm not going to tell you why she's called Momsy. You have to read the book.
I have to read the book. Okay, okay, okay. Well, we'll put the information on after this.
Okay.
And is there anything else that you would like to say to a caregiver, maybe someone who's struggling because of the situation that they have, or just something that you are surprised that can happen through caregiving, or something that just to give people some help or assistance in their situation?
Ask for help.
Ask for help.
Ask for help. If you're frustrated, if you're exhausted, if you're tired, if you're confused, if you're sad, if you're grieving, if you're angry, ask for help. Don't try to be the martyr. Don't try to, be the good, I'm okay, because you're not. And you're not supposed to go through this journey by yourself. There are places, as well as that can come alongside and help you and fill in the gaps. You can't be everything to somebody, and you can't do that if there's nothing of you left, and
Mhm.
you don't want to lose yourself in that struggle.
Mm, okay, okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. We really appreciate it. I know it was very personal, but all these things help other people. You never know who's going through it. So I thank you so much for taking time to share your story with Autumn is here.
Thank you very much, Francine. I appreciate the opportunity to just sit and talk to your audience.
All right. Well, take care.